is Lynn Pickerell, and I'm a PhD researcher at the University of Lincoln, and I'm going to be talking to you about emotions today and why they can sometimes feel like they're taking over. Emotions are brilliant, even the ones that feel a bit negative, like anger or fear, because they're vital for our survival. But sometimes we can feel like they're making us act in ways that we don't want, or we can't get rid of a certain feeling, even though it's awful, like sadness or fear or dread. So I'm going to give you an outline of why this happens. So first of all, what is an emotion? Well, it's a message, a stimulation to act. Just like when we get a message about being hungry or being cold, our body gives us the feeling that our internal state has changed and it wants us to act on that, to get food or to get a jumper. When it comes to emotions, we can differentiate between these internal feelings and we can label them. So we give them labels like happiness or disgust or anger or curiosity. And the key messages that emotions give us are to keep us safe in response to a threat or to keep us happy by gaining a reward. Our emotions are generated in the limbic system, which is tucked right in the middle of our brain. And they're mainly stimulated by our senses, so what we see and hear and feel and smell and taste, and they trigger responses within us, so our thoughts, our feelings and our behaviours, what we do. And these responses can have different durations, different intensity, different valence, so whether we see them as good or bad. So for example, you're walking down a street and you hear a siren. You might feel an intense emotion, it might stop you in your tracks. And it doesn't last long because the police car or whatever it is gone. Okay, you carry on moving down the road and you see a friend and you wave to the friend. They don't wave back, and then you might be thinking, well, what's wrong there? Are they ignoring you? You're a bit further down the road and you see a cute dog. Oh, it's such nice feelings it's generating in your memories of your own dog. And as you pass, you realise it's left a little gift on the pavement, and then you're disgusted. That's awful. So we experience these shifts in emotion all the time, but our bodies like to be in balance, not too hot, not too cold, and the same goes for our emotions as well. So as well as experiencing emotions all the time, our brains are trying to regulate our emotions all the time as well. And the part of our brain that does most of the regulating is called the prefrontal cortex, and it's right at the front here. And this is where we draw our motivations from. We might plan long-term goals, problem solving, consequential thinking, so thinking about the effects of our actions. And usually our prefrontal cortex wins out. So if we get angry in a situation, we don't absolutely lose it because we think about the consequences of our actions. But sometimes the intensity of our emotions is too strong for the prefrontal cortex to compete. And also our prefrontal cortex can get tired and it can't regulate effectively. So if you find yourself getting irritable or anxious or teary, it's because your limbic system, your emotion centre, is starting to dominate. So how can we manage our emotions and stop them taking over? Now, creating awareness around our emotions is one of the key things we can do to help. We all experience emotions in different ways, so it's useful to understand how they're affecting you individually. Which emotions dominate, what triggers them, how do they feel and how do you respond to them? So for example, you might have a deadline or an essay or an exam. You're dreading it, but you don't have the motivation to work on it. Now, your brain is kind of in competition with itself here. Your emotions see a threat, something that's making you feel really uncomfortable. I want you to get away. But the problem-solving part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, needs you to sit there and work on it because it understands the consequences if you don't. So you need to override this kind of powerful emotional response. And it might help to understand how your emotions are influencing you at that point. So when you sit down to work, how are you feeling? Do you feel fear? Do you feel boredom? Possibly some shame around your knowledge or your ability? And what kind of thoughts is that generating? Can you change those thoughts? What kind of physical response is this creating? So it might even be affecting your breathing or your heart rate or tensing up your muscles. Can you change that? Can you maybe relax a little? And then what about your behaviour? So for example, if you're avoiding the situation, so you're doing something else, you're messing around on your phone or something, it doesn't mean that you can avoid the emotion. Now, this is all so much easier to say than to do, but if you do gain more of an understanding about your emotions and how they influence you, then it's one step closer to you taking back control.